How does one travel the spiritual journey when the world is in flames? This may sound hyperbolic, but if you look at the entire course of human history, there are periods where humanity is faced with a series of unimaginable challenges, unimaginable circumstances, and situations that make it very difficult for both the individual but also the collective to navigate. Now, this channel has never been, never will be, focused on political events, geopolitical events, what's going on, from a partisan perspective, or what's going on from a humanitarian perspective. These are all things that I think many of us are already aware of. We already have a sense of conscience. We already have a moral compass that teaches us that these are the right things to do, these are not the right things to do. These are the people that need to be supported, these are the people that need to be opposed against. But what I wanted to do in this video is to explore a common obstacle, a common challenge that all of us face, which is, how do we practice spirituality? How do we even return to our soul when there is so much going on in the world around us? You see, we think of spirituality as being an individual exercise, something that we do with ourselves, by ourselves, right? It's not usually associated with how do we bring in the rest of society, right? Yes, there is that component of it too, right? When we see things like group classes or group meditations or group teachings, seminars, workshops, things of that nature that bring like-minded and like-hearted individuals together. But the bulk of the work has to be done alone, right? It's something that makes it difficult sometimes because we could be in this tunnel vision of trying to do everything we can, but reality hits us straight in the face. And we start to feel like we cannot block out the noise. And I'm not saying we should either, right? As I mentioned, we all have a conscience. We all have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. So how do we loop those two together? How do we make it so that we still can practice spirituality on an individual level, but we're also aware of and involved in whatever is going on in the world around us? Stick around with me to the end of the video. I'll be going over some tips and tricks, some things that I've learned through my own experience of practicing spirituality, traveling deeper and deeper into my core, while also at the same time having one foot in this world, having one foot in what's real, what's in front of me, what are the things that I just can't ignore. So I'll start with one of the most obvious things, which is we all encounter challenges in our lives, right? And it seems like those challenges have been amplified simply by the fact that we are now exposed to more information, right? It used to be that 20, 30 years ago, before social media, it was very hard to understand what was going on the other side of the world. Heck, it was really hard to understand what was going on at the end of, the other side of the country that you live in, or the other side of town, or the other side of your neighborhood, right? But now everything is all integrated. Everything is all available at the palm of your hand, through your phone, through all the notifications, through the news media, through everything. You now have more information than arguably anyone else, any generation that has come before you. Now, on one hand, that can be empowering, right? It's good to be aware. It's good to see what's going on, right? In fact, I got a Ring notification this morning saying, there was, someone's car got apparently broken into. So it's good to see, luckily it wasn't in our neighborhood, but, it's good to be aware of that, right? So we can take precautions, so we can make any sort of changes to our life as need be. But on the other side of it, where do we draw the line, right? Where do we draw the line? Because at some point it starts to weigh down on us as human beings, right? We have what's called analysis paralysis. We just simply cannot absorb and process all this information. And that's really what I wanted to kind of drill down a little bit further in this video is the spiritual journey in and of itself is one that requires us to let go of the mind, to detach ourselves from the mind, to not be associated with the workings of the mind. But of course, when we're interacting in the real world, when we're interacting in our day-to-day life, especially when we're processing all this information, the mind is front and center, right? If you hear a news of an incident occurring, that might all of a sudden spark fears of your own life, of your own safety, of your own well-being, or that of others, right? So it's this constant, pull and push mechanism that's going on. Your soul wants you to disconnect from the world, but your mind is telling you that you need to be even more vigilant and even more aware because you have a role to play. You're not just the spiritual being that's meant to be isolated in the mountains, in the woods, completely oblivious to what's going on, completely apathetic to whatever is going on. You're supposed to care as a human being, right? We're all put on this earth together to be here for one another, to help one another in whatever capacity we can. Now, obviously, we can't help the entire world. We can't help every individual, but that's not the point. The spirit is in helping. The spirit is in giving. The spirit is in being aware and using our voice, using our conscience. Because more often than not, our spiritual being, our soul is also guiding us to that truth, is also telling us that we need to awaken and we need to connect with our fellow human beings who may be experiencing a tougher situation than we are. So there's this constant challenge that I talk about, right? But then how does that apply to our daily life, right? What is the right level of balance, I guess you could say, between how much should I be involved versus how much should I focus on my own self? And I always like to start it at the individual level because that's truly where change begins to happen. If you want to change the world, start by changing yourself, right? You've heard that expression. You've heard a variation of that quote, and I believe that to be true, right? If you're trying to help others, but you haven't really focused on yourself, then you're not really helping those people, no matter how much you think you are. So change has to start at the individual level. And that's what I call raising the individual consciousness, right? You can only control one body, you can only control one mind, you can only control one experience, one life. So start with that. Continue on this journey. Continue with your spiritual practices, your exercises. Always seek to grow, seek to learn, seek to be a better version of yourself. In fact, you should never wake up having the desire to just repeat what happened yesterday. You should always have this desire to keep building on yesterday, to keep improving, to keep changing. If there's blind spots that you had in your life, to now start shining a light on that and start addressing it. Every problem, every bad habit, every unconscious behavior can be addressed. The people that know me best have always described me as patient. I wouldn't say I'm the most patient person in the world, but I'm definitely a lot more patient than who I was 5, 10, and 15 years ago. And I don't think that happened by chance, right? It happened because I wanted to make a conscious effort to be more patient, to navigate and overcome adversity, to ride the highs and lows of life, and to wait until the universe says, this is your time, this is your moment. And through years of practice, I've been able to kind of get better at this. So every unconscious behavior can be addressed, can be worked on, as long as you're willing to put in the time, as long as you are willing to make that change in your life because you see the benefits, because you see what it can do to you, right? But then we go one step further, right? If the first step is to work on yourself, to keep doing whatever it is that you're doing, but also to expand upon that, then the second step is, well, how do I continue the spiritual journey that I'm on, but also connect and resonate with other souls who may be going through something else, right? It could be anything. It could be, you know, a mental health challenge that someone is facing. It could be a humanitarian crisis all the way across the world. In fact, it's very tragic right now to see what's going on in many parts of the world where innocent children are suffering, innocent children are without food, and we here, for the most part, take that for granted. We assume that our meals will always be here. We assume that everything will be provided for. Now, again, not to try to spin this into a political or partisan or national or whatever. The whole point is not to take sides. The whole point is to take the side of the collective, take the side of humanity, take the side of those who are truly going through a tough time, right? And there's obviously debate as to who is experiencing it, but I do believe on some level we all are experiencing challenges. Some of them are staring us right smack dab in the face, others are hidden. And so again, it's not your job to try to solve the world's problems, but it is your job to empathize and to be aware, right? But to also balance that, right? To not let that overwhelm you. Because I know many cases sometimes where people can feel so overwhelmed by it. They feel so depressed by it. They look at their stories, they look at their social media feed, and it's just so difficult for them to even carry on with their lives because they see everything that's going on out there. And it's casting a negative sort of aura or a cloud over them. So how do you balance those two, right? So I know this video was a little bit more of a conversational video, perhaps not so much on the spiritual teaching side, but more just trying to connect it with what's going on in our daily life, right? As I mentioned, we all go through different challenges, both on the personal level, but also on the collective level, right? Now, a couple of years after the pandemic, it might seem like something in the rearview mirror, and for some part it is, but we always will encounter challenges on so many different levels, whether that's what's going on in our country, whether that's what's going on across the world, whether that's what's going on from a climate perspective, an environmental perspective. There are major changes that are happening every single day, every single minute. And we as a species, we as humanity at large, we must be able to navigate that. Not necessarily just by worrying about ourselves and worrying about our spiritual progress, but also trying to worry about others as well. Being compassionate, showing love and care and kindness. These traits never get old. As much as I value and appreciate the ability of one person to transform their soul, I also place an equal importance and an equal responsibility for that person, if not entirely transform another person's soul, to at least be a positive force in their life and to not be a negative one. So the next time you're at the grocery store, or the next time you read a negative comment on social media, don't react negatively to it. I know the mind and the ego may tempt you to try to get one up over them and try to, make yourself feel better and make them feel less. But at the end of the day, these things are all so meaningless and so empty and hollow. Be a positive force. Protect yourself, of course. There are people that, unfortunately, in their unconscious behavior, they will just destroy everything in their path, right? And so you have a responsibility, whether that's your parents, your kids, your loved ones, even strangers. You have a responsibility to protect yourself from all that damage, but also recognize that it doesn't mean that you can't stop being kind, and you can't stop being patient, and you can't stop being loving. So I hope this video gave you guys a little bit of a perspective on balancing these two, right? The spiritual journey, which is primarily individual, but also the collective journey, something that we're facing with 8 billion people simultaneously. Hopefully this expands your perspective and helps you see the world in a whole new light. Rather than seeing yourself as the center of the universe, seeing yourself as a part of the universe, as just like the drops of the ocean analogy that I always come back to, we are all drops of the same ocean. And the more you can realize, that will actually help you accelerate your own spiritual journey. And with that, I'll leave you guys with sort of some final remarks. I know this is getting a little bit on the longer side, but I really do hope that this video helped open eyes to some degrees. Maybe these are things you were already aware of. And if so, would love to hear your perspectives on, some of the things that we discussed and how you are personally navigating these two, balancing these two. It's certainly an interesting thing. It's something that we're dealing with every single day. So definitely would love to hear your comments. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to drop a like, and also check out some of the other videos on the channel. Hit that subscribe button if you want more weekly videos. I will be, in the not too distant future, trying out some different formats and content. So hopefully you guys enjoyed all this. Hopefully you guys see value in it. And as always, if you are looking for someone to help you on this journey, whether it's navigating this particular challenge or navigating anything else, please do remember that I offer spiritual counseling services. You can learn more by visiting my website, www.nickgmostaman.com. And you can also reach out to me there and we can schedule a 30-minute, no obligation consultation to learn if this is the right thing for you. But with that, I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you a lot of success and joy navigating this, going further on your spiritual journey, but at the end of the day, being a positive force for humanity, putting your stamp in this world, putting your stamp in this life. And with that, I will see you next time.